Welcome to the Swinging Lights, a podcasting band. In this episode, Chris and I discuss the Grammys, the pros and cons of Spotify, deepities, and you do not want to miss Chris's rant on the Time's Up movement. Had me laughing my ass off. Hope you enjoy. Did you watch the Grammys?
Yes. I lied. I said we should talk about it because I did not, in fact, even know that they were on until somebody asked me if I was watching them. Did you know they were on?
Nope.
Did you know they were on before I asked you if you were watching them?
Nope.
It's because then I asked you after somebody asked me. And I was like, I don't remember the last time I paid attention to the Grammys being on. And I'm talking a decade. Well, I mean, I don't think I ever was like, I got to see the Grammys, you know. But
Do you remember years ago when Guns N' Roses got up to give their little speech? They got I think it was at the Grammys. They got a Grammy, and Slash was just effing it up like crazy. Like it was just bleeping. He's like, oh, fuck, man. Like the fucking fuck. And it was just like bleep, beep, 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 beep. And then they like cut to commercial early. I remember that as being a very interesting Grammy
was that in the 90s?
situation.
That had to have been the 90s.
It must have been late 80s, early 90s.
Unless you're thinking of him being part of a different band and winning it. But
No, it was Guns N' Roses.
so I definitely for sure didn't watch it back then, and I was a Guns N' Roses fan back then, and so I would have remembered it. But I mean, I just never gave two giant dumps about the Grammys. But I don't even remember that. Now I remember one. This might have been MTV Music Awards, where the Rage Against the Machine guys started like climbing all over the back set or something.
Oh yeah, it was the bass player.
Yeah, because he's rock and roll. And that's the machine he was raging against was the award show.
So what do you think about the Grammys?
I wonder why anyone cares. Like that's I mean, I get why Oscars and stuff are interesting to people maybe, but I wonder, we played a lot of music around our state for a long time, and I wonder all the people we played with, how much of any of them watched the Grammys. You know, like less than 10% of people who actually play music. I mean, maybe people who are worried about a scene in some way, but like, I wonder how many people paid attention or watched at all. But, that actually play music. I mean, maybe it's for.
So what is the purpose of the Grammys?
I don't know. I mean, has anybody ever?
Is it just like let's pat each other on the backs?
Because one of the things about
my pop album was better than your pop album.
One of the things about the Oscars is that it really does kind of make you kind of say, "Oh, I should check that movie out. Oh, I should check that movie out." You know what I mean? I didn't know about these kind of supposedly deeper movies that are worth seeing, and I didn't hear about any of them until the Oscars came around. You know what I mean? But when has anybody ever been? Well, nobody thumbs through the music at a music store now, but then saw something like, "Oh, Grammy! This is a Grammy album." I was not going to buy this album, but I see it has a Grammy there, so. I must now purchase this album.
Who knows?
No, right? I mean,
I don't think so.
No.
I never have.
What? There's no point of a Grammy. There's no point to it. It's ridiculous. I mean, maybe it's just to have.
So why do you think
TV show or
it relates to everything else, like if Golden Globes and the Oscars?
Those ones slightly make more sense because people might actually tune into something that they think they're missing out on when they see that it's getting awards. Although those things have become so politicized now that I don't think they are as much as they used to be. But there really was a time frame where like when TV shows were switching over from the stupid little ER or whatever, there was a time that all you got was what was on the big three networks, and it was law show, cop show, hospital show. I think that's it. Law show, cop show, hospital show, and like there was like 15 different ones on those three channels, because maybe they thought just those three types of shows were the only things that could have mass appeal or in some sort of way. And they were so, back when there was just three networks, trying so hard to appeal to everyone. And then Sopranos came along, and it just swept year after year after year for like 6 years straight the Emmys,
Mm-hmm.
and that's kind of what changed around all TV to like what we have today now, of like we're going to try to do shows that are actually they're not just single episode based, they're telling an overall arching story, they're maybe R-rated, they're not just about those big three ideas,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so the Emmys they kind of served a purpose to make television better,
Okay.
I don't think the Grammys serves to make music better at all.
What does it serve?
I don't know. It's almost kind of like who
did
did
together some weird shit, man. Like I kind of did a little researching today about it, and I watched like the opening performance by Kendrick Lamar, and he's very talented.
Kendrick's really good.
But halfway through it, you've got The Edge and Bono.
Yeah, they always
coming out and singing a part, and I'm just like, why?
They always mix and match.
Why do they do that?
I don't know, just to do some special show for night or something, I guess. I guess they do mix and match stuff. I've seen some.
And they had Chris Stapleton
I've seen some
and
clips
some other
of
gal
having
like
two
sing a
different
Tom
people.
Petty song.
Yeah.
There was some kind of complaints about that Tom Petty deserved. Not that Chris Stapleton didn't do a good job, but like he deserved a bigger situation than that. Like they didn't even show any pictures of him, I guess. They just had flowers going. Images of flowers while they're
So
singing.
what? Are they supposed to cover every artist who ever died and do all their songs?
I don't know, man. I was just reading through it, and it just seemed like a clusterfuck of a bunch of different weird shit, and then a lot of political stuff and speeches. It's just like catering and trying to appease everyone instead of just legitimately honoring the best music that came out that year.
It definitely... from what I've seen, like it definitely has a feeling where it's not like those other award shows where people are acting like it is like a true banquet or something like that. They are, everybody's wanting to show how soulful they are, so they're all dressed different and acting like they're so, everybody's so artistic. And but on one sense, I almost think that's what the Grammys are. It's almost like a. And I don't mean this just in a commercialization, boring old, it's so commercial. I mean, it really is like commercial awards. Like, here, you did the best commercialing this year, and you win for that. Like, your music video was almost like a good 2-minute commercial for you. I don't know. But I don't know. I wonder. Most people get their music nowadays from what, like Spotify, YouTube,
Friends. Dude, I gotta read this for you. It was the Onion article my wife sent me today on Instagram. It says songs that are always on in background expected to win big at Grammys.
That was one of the things a few years back that kind of blew my mind, because we're kind of like we're 10 years in now to internet being probably the bigger thing than radio, or I mean, I don't know what the exact numbers are, but the switch happened, right? I mean,
Yeah.
internet's stronger than regular television and radio now, and for a while. And a couple years back, I was sitting there and I was like wondering, since internet is so specialized, I can kind of specialize down to almost exactly what I want. You know, I can just listen to things I want, watch things I want, hear things I want. But why do I still know who Katy Perry is? You know, like I've been almost exclusively internet for a long time. You know, I have some TV. I have cable now, but I never look at it.
Those songs are still just insidious. They're everywhere you go. I've been at
But
home.
how? Like,
I've been at
where?
Home
Is it-
Depot,
is it-
just trying to take a piss,
Is it
and the
stores?
song's playing. Yeah, and everywhere you go, there's always some shitty ass fucking song playing in the background. There's no silence anywhere.
It's like it's maybe I catch it from stores or Saturday Night Live or something, or
Kids, what was that dumb?
I don't have any kids, but
what do you call this? A dab?
Oh yeah,
That
my
move?
nephew's got way into that. But
It's
who
just
started it?
kids? Who the fuck knows? But it's bananas. There's so many songs that I know that I also know that I've never consciously or purposefully listened to. Most of Journey, I've never looked up Journey.
Well,
but
but
yet
that's
I know their songs.
that's totally understandable from back in the day. That's what I'm saying. Back in the day when we really only had radio to wait through, and you had to. If you think back to what it was really like listening to radio back in the day, you had to wade through what 80%, 90% of stuff you didn't want to hear.
True.
I mean, is it that high?
Do you remember when you had like a cassette tape recorder and you'd wait for
Yeah.
the song
Oh.
to come on
But
the
that was
radio
looking
so
for
you
the
could
single
record
song.
it so you could listen to it again?
But I remember when I started doing that as a kid, I remember I started doing it to so many like so songs that I'd end up with like a whole tape. Like when I got done with it, I'd listen back to the tape and I'm like, this is trash. Like I just like all these songs. I said, yeah, maybe, and I clicked yes on it, and then when I got done with it, I was like, no, I didn't want any of those songs. Like what, you know? But yeah, I mean. Back in the day, around here, we had an oldie station, we had an alternative station, then we had like a rock station, and that was really it.
Smooth jazz. We had a
Yeah, but
smooth
I mean,
jazz
like what that
station.
we might have listened to as young rockin' kids. You know what I mean? I only listened to either 103.5, it's an oldies, 101 era is rock, and
You
then
didn't listen to X96?
Then X96 was alternative. That's what I'm saying. It was just those three.
What about KRCL? Or you didn't know about
I didn't
that?
listen to. I didn't know about it back in the day, and so I only listened to those three. And if I'm being generous, I would say it was 15% of the songs I wanted to hear. But since we didn't know anything different, we weren't mad about that. We thought that was a pretty good average, you know?
Right.
I mean? Like we didn't. Did you think about how impatient you'd be with that nowadays? You know.
Yeah, but at the same time, it kind of created a realm of truly, like, true excitement, right? Like nowadays, like my daughter, for example, she doesn't really understand what an album is, even though I have like a huge record collection we put records on, but she's just on Spotify. So she's like, this is my favorite band, and she plays like some song from 21 Pilots, right? I'm like, well, how's the rest of the album? She's like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, how's the rest of this album that this song came off of? And then we pull up the album, we listen to it, and she's like, yeah, I don't really like that song or that song. And it just made me realize, like, kids nowadays, because of this whole, you know, conundrum, whatever you want to call it, it's everything is there. You can have everything. It's all accessible. You can just switch from one song to the next at the blink of an eye. Nobody's paying attention, whereas when we were younger and songs were coming on the radio and that was the only place we had to get that music, we were allowed to be surprised and we had to listen to whole songs. And then when you really got into it, you'd buy that artist's album and listen to the whole album over and over and over and over and over again.
And then you got familiar with like how long the pauses were between the songs,
right?
And
But kids nowadays, it's just ADD everywhere. Like, how do you maintain anybody's interest in your art for longer than a week or two? You know?
Do you remember being a kid? And I know I've done this even as an adult sometimes, but I mean, as a kid, listening through an album 2 or 3 times, like just letting it go and it just keep going. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
I highly doubt kids nowadays go through that sort of thing. But you got to the point where you knew the structure of the album almost like you knew a song, almost like you knew a movie. You know what I mean? And you could hear like the song on the radio, and when the song was over, you'd be expecting it to kick into the next song on the album. You know,
right?
Because you knew what was coming, and yeah, that's maybe all gone, but that's a sad thing to go, because in a weird way, it's kind of like no more novels, just short stories, you know, or I don't know, but I don't know the way people even get music nowadays, like the way you purchase it or whatever. Does it even play album like at all, you know?
Well, I think Spotify does. I think Spotify...
It'll play a whole album?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
If you...
Yeah, you got to choose the album. But I've also found that Spotify has like a ridiculously good algorithm, because I'll be listening like Dr. Dog, and then all of a sudden it'll like take me down. Like when the album's done, it'll start throwing in other songs that you may like, and I've been turned on to other bands that way.
Really?
Yeah, Spotify is really cool.
I haven't gotten into Spotify enough, and this is one of the things.
But it's a catch-22, because from what I understand, Spotify pays like $1.99 to the artists, and they're making a shit ton of money. I don't know all the ins and outs of it, but that's the tough thing. I mean, being an artist, you know, Chris and I are in a band called the Swinging Lights. We're trying to, you know, bring these two things together: podcasting, music, stuff of that nature. You know, as a band, you want to make money, but at the same time, it's like you also want people to know about your music. So I think a lot of artists get caught in that kind of trap zone. You know, they're going to get their music out and get fans, but they're not going to get paid for it. But somebody else is going to make a shit ton of money off of the collective works of everybody else. That's where I think Spotify gets a little bit shady, you know, but better than Napster. Napster, nobody got anything, right? Isn't that where that all kind of started?
And they, I think they even kind of thought that. Well, now everybody's kind of saying that Metallica was right. Everybody used to give a lot of crap to Metallica because they were the ones who first fought it. And Metallica just were called the complete sellouts and just like ripped apart for it. But they claimed that they were doing it for other bands, you know what I mean? And nowadays I hear a lot of people saying like they were right. You know, Lars Ulrich was right. They all hated him because he was a douchebag, but he was right. You know,
right.
They should have held on to that a bit harder, and now it's gone.
It's inevitable. It was gonna come anyway. I mean, it
seems like the crazy money making music time frame of what, the 50s to the 80s to the 90s maybe. It seemed like that was artificial. It seemed like that was always a bubble. You know what I mean? If you look throughout history, what like performing artists make, look, there's one little time where there was like an artificial bubble of they're gonna make a lot, you know,
or they were getting signed on with huge contracts right off the bat. That ship's gone. That doesn't happen anymore, does it?
No, I mean there used to be what they called A&R reps, where guys would just go around and like check out local bands trying to discover the next big band, and they weren't trying to find like an already polished act. They were trying to find potential.
Right.
And they'd choose potential, and then they'd go and take this band with potential and hone them in and produce an album and put it out with good PR and good
cocaine
to the
disc jockeys,
to the disc jockeys, and force it in all these different areas and stations, and start putting pictures out and photo ops and all that sort of stuff, and that was all just off of a guy thinking like, I think these guys have potential, not even like
Right. Well, wasn't there more like independent labels back then too? Now everything's been gobbled up by the 4 or 5 giant corporations, Sony, freaking
I
Warner
don't even know
Brothers.
how those labels work nowadays, man. I mean, I remember 20 years ago when we were doing music, like everybody's idea was like, gotta get signed, gotta get signed, gotta get signed. I don't think anybody doing music thinks that way now. I think everybody thinks you gotta make it yourself, either just kind of locally or touring around or on the internet. And then if one of those places wants to get in on it, you might
Right.
start negotiating then of, well, what do you offer me because I offer you this, and what do you offer me that I offer you this. None of it's an A&R rep going around looking for people, although I'm positive there's still some level of that happening, like in Hollywood or LA, of somebody saying, okay, we need a Katy Perry, let's go find.
Yeah, but that's some put together by the labels to keep that money coming in.
Yeah.
It seems that the bigger...
That's not discovering a band or a singer. That's
No,
totally,
it seems like the model that's being taken on by bigger labels anyway. I'm sure there's plenty of like independent labels that are smaller that aren't like big players in the game, but you know the big labels they just have a lot of bands that they nickel and dime, right?
Yeah.
It's like, from what I understand, you know, you can be on our label, but we're basically giving you a loan of $100,000, and you're gonna cut an album,
too.
and you're gonna have to like go on, but you have to pay it back.
That changed too. It wasn't like that in the 90s, I don't think. That
No,
by like the
80s
2000s they started doing that. But
Yeah, but I think there was still some of that going on. Like the 90s is really where it kind of farted out. But, you know, the music industry, as far as labels and taking care of bands and pushing bands and stuff, that kind of all took a shit during the 80s, it seemed like. And then during the 90s, it kind of wound down. But there were just a couple of bands that got lucky, right? Like Radiohead got picked up late 80s, and they got a fucking killer deal, right? They just got total creative control, and they've always had creative control that whole time. But they're kind of one of the last bands that really got lucky like that.
They even got time. They were given like years to kind of just sit there and put it all together before they dropped it, before they released it.
That doesn't seem like that happens anymore. Like,
no, that doesn't happen. But it does happen on a different level. It happens in a pre-constructed level. Like some of these bands aren't. I don't know a thing about that 21 Pilots but I know it might be Katy Perry, but I'm sure it's partially with 21 Pilots too. That those are created. Those are created bands. Those aren't. Those bands are almost like a.
When you say created, because all music's created, what you're referring to is that
They weren't a band and the label signed them. You know what I mean?
Right.
It was like, I mean, maybe those two guys were friends. Or I shouldn't say about 21 Pilots. I don't know anything about them. But there's for sure bands out there that were 5 different guys who were kind of ringers, who they knew were talented, came through different schools because there's schools all over of music, and a label's putting together a band, and we need these players, and we bring these 5 guys together and then we start promoting it like they're an old buddy garage band from forever. I'm telling you, it's like the same way that NSYNC was created, bands have been created.
Right.
And I bet you that's true of most of those bands that make it to the Grammys. I even heard that that's kind of what happened. Bruno Mars got picked up, and he was. I remember hearing an interview from him talking about it, that he was put on the burner for a while because they were just building him slowly, you know, and you know, he couldn't just fire out the gates and do everything. They were totally trying to create a whole thing and image around him, you know.
So the big corporations are
That's
creating
what's the Grammys, and there's not one thing at the Grammys there that was like, hey, I'm just a person making music, and you know, oh wow, this guy's a phenomenon. We're gonna sign them and make it like every single thing there is just
So
it's no different than creating a Cheerios commercial.
Right. And then you're creating the need for that product too, right? It's kind of like fashion.
It's
always changes, but it's the
that,
companies that create the fashion, put the fashion on certain people's faces and promote it and advertise
and that's what
it
the
till
Grammys,
it gets to the point where
that's
everybody
what the
has to
Grammys
have that article of clothing or that piece of fashion, right?
The music's not the bottom line of the Grammys. The Grammys are an image awards for sure. They're for sure an image awards. And that doesn't mean that it's just pure shit music there. For sure there's there's really good producers, out there, but that's part of what they do. I mean, you know, a lot of that extra production isn't just some kid in Iowa who figured out how to make all that production. You know what I mean? They got top level producers to flesh out their songs, but it's also kind of one of the things that I know, like you see these songs by, say, Taylor Swift or whoever, and they say they wrote them themselves or whatever, and you can tell that that's not true. And the way you can tell that it's not true is by how branded it is. You know, I mean, like how much it has like a perfect hook, how much it's perfectly not going out there anywhere. You know what I mean? Like nothing's going out of line. Everything's gonna stay kind of like right at home, and then all the lyrics are going to stay perfectly kind of neutral, perfectly kind of, if you ever sit with anybody who's really writing their own songs from a young age with no experience or anything, they don't perfectly make it mass sellable. You know what I mean? They're going to accidentally kind of say something too specific or too personal or too stupid, or you know what I mean? Right. You can just tell by how perfectly bubblegum the whole song is, that it, none of the music tries to do anything different or weird. None of the, it's got a very specific hook to it. The hook is very universal. There's nothing in that hook that's, I'm Taylor Swift, she's not going to say something so specific. It's going to be something that supposedly every girl could say, you know what I mean? And no, you didn't write that. But we already know that in like a lot of those scenarios that they purchase, there's these songs databases. We have a friend.
Isn't there
Steve,
like a lot of country artists that like?
Oh yeah.
Didn't Garth Brooks?
He didn't write any songs, but he didn't claim to.
Right, and a fantastic performer.
Yeah.
Amazing voice, but they don't. A lot of those country artists don't buy their own, or don't write their own music. They buy them, right?
For sure.
And it goes the highest
Tim
bidder.
McGraw for sure, and then Garth Brooks for sure. But then that's when you have Sturgill Simpson come along, which is somebody who shows up at the Grammys that we like a lot and know a lot. And
he's such a badass.
But he built up the right way. But he for sure was one that the labels jumped on with after he made waves.
Right.
Not let's go make this guy and take him and make waves with him. Like he made the waves, and then they wanted a piece of it.
He's got the control. He created something valuable.
Which is,
he created something that's better in the same system, right? He's in the system of country music, but he created something that's better.
You can tell that his songs are written by. It's what I'm saying about Taylor Swift or these other people. Like those songs are so universally bubblegum. They're so perfectly concocted to fit the general universal narrative. But Sturgill songs aren't going to be that way. They're going to be a little bit more specific. They're going to be say something a little bit more out there. Say something that might irritate a person or two. You know what I mean? And
outlaw country, man.
Yeah, and but even if it's outlaw or not, some of that's just specifically being an honest person.
Being authentic.
Yeah, and not just trying to put out a piece of I hate saying commercialization like it's so commercial. I mean it like actually.
I got my blue jeans pickup truck drinking Budweiser on
I mean
desert.
actually in the true sense of you might have written a good line that you liked and then said that's not universal enough. I got to take it out, make it more,
Right.
And because you're worried about it being swallowed by mass audiences. You make it mass digestible, you know. Which is there's a talent to that too. I'm not saying there
sure.
isn't a talent. There's a talent to making a commercial.
It's just like having a marketing degree, right?
Yeah, but
But it doesn't ring
that's nothing
to me,
shit
like,
on.
I tend to shy away from that type of stuff because I'm too aware of it that it bothers me.
Yeah.
Like everything that I choose to listen to, choose to watch has to have some type of authenticity about it. Otherwise, I just don't.
I agree too,
I don't like it. Like give me an example of anything that's not authentic that you're like, I just love it, even though I know it's not authentic.
A lot of people have guilty pleasures. I can't really say that I do, like in the music world. I have guilty pleasures, like in, you know,
like what?
Food in the food world. Like you could.
You said in the music world. What's like a band you listen to?
I said I don't have a guilty pleasure in the music world because I think every band I've liked really means what they say. You know what I mean? And I think that's really what it comes down to. And a lot of those image type bands don't mean what they say. They mean to be an image. You know?
Right.
But
you pay attention to that. Like for me, I'm not trying to
you
say
can't
like
not pay attention to it. But
I'm a
guilty
music
pleasure
snob. All the music I listen to is great. I'm just talking about authenticity. When something seems inauthentic to me, I tend to not enjoy it.
Paul McCartney has a lot of songs that people think are bullshit bubblegum, and on a level they are bullshit bubblegum. But Paul McCartney's brain is bullshit bubblegum sometimes. You know what I mean? Like he means that. Like you can really and so I'll be like, some of his little hokey optimistic songs, I like him because he meant that. Right. You know what I mean? And it was really down to meaning it. You know, man, it's definitely not. But at the other end too is like, I don't care about the commercialization, and I don't hate it. I would maybe hate it if I was in your spot where I had a daughter playing it all the time or something. but and had to listen to it. I don't have to listen to it. I don't hate it. I just don't notice it. Like we didn't know the Grammys were on. I think if people hated it, and there are some people I'm sure who do this, but they'd sit and hate watch it. You know what I mean? Most people we know who play music just didn't even know it was on.
Right.
We just didn't even care, you know? Do you think the people we run around with, do you think anybody cared?
No.
It's not hate. It's not hate at all. And I absolutely think and know there's a talent to that commercialization. That's not easy, you know? Go do it if it's easy, you know what I mean? Right. It's not easy to do that. It's just not art. You know what I mean? Maybe it's image art, but it's not. Well, I mean, you can't say it's not music art because they definitely hire some people who know what they're doing on some songs. You know what I mean? But I think the ultimate messages of the songs, like what I'm saying is the craft of music is there in a lot of songs, but I think the meaning isn't a lot of times. I think a lot of times the meaning is the meaning's not there. You know.
Just like a hook that catches your
It's a hook. It sounds like it's meaningful. Something that Daniel Dennett will call a deepity. It sounds like it's deep, but it's, if you think about it like that.
Deepity?
Yeah. If you think about it pretty hard, that's not deep at all. You know what I mean? Like, I'm so deep. It's a deepity. But I would say most of that music's loaded with deepities. You know what I mean? But I haven't listened to a ton. I don't think Kendrick Lamar is deepity. I think I've listened to some of his rap, but that's just not my taste. But I know that he's a guy who's rapping real deal, like about real things, you know.
Right.
But and that's not even saying real, like street real. I mean, he raps about stuff like how he loves his grandma and stuff like that, you know. Like he's real deal. It's just not my thing. So I don't mean to say group that whole entire thing into that, but there's for sure the people who are just like a marketing degree doing it like a marketing degree, and I don't even hate that or dislike that. I think if you're like a real musician, you don't care about doing that unless you are going into marketing. Right. You know, like you could go in, like I took some marketing classes in school. Like you could go into marketing and you could be a music guy going into marketing. That's fine, but that's not what we're doing. You know. and we're not. I don't even mean to hate on it. I hate on it if I have to listen to too much of it, but I don't hate like I don't hate on it at all. I don't hate that Bruno Mars. I've heard one or two of his songs. He's pretty good, right? But
I mean, he's.
I don't hate that stuff
right.
at all. I that's yeah. I mean, maybe like a young 20s age, I hated on it. I just don't hate on it now. I just don't care, you know. But
it's because you're not subjected to it.
That's true. I would hate it if I was subjected to it, maybe a bit.
I have a tough time because I love the hell out of my kid. And she's 13, going on 14, and she just wants me to really love the music she's listening to.
She wants to show it to you and say, "See this?"
And it's really hard because it's like I can't fake the excitement. And then she's like, "Ooh, what's wrong with it?" I'm like, "No, I get why you like it." But I'm 40 years old, man. I'm a 40-year-old man. This song isn't written for me.
So I can play along with my nieces and nephews a little bit with that because they'll show me some stuff. But like my nephew just lately, and just like I said from the start, like first thing I wanted to learn when I was playing was Guns N' Roses, and I will 100% back them up and 100% agree that that's some bullshit. You know what I mean? Like it's both. I think they were both legit and commercial bullshit. You know what I mean? Both at the same time. So my nephew wants me to teach him some Imagine Dragons. We're here in Utah. Maybe it's blasphemy to talk shit on Imagine Dragons, you know, but fuck Imagine Dragons. And I'm not hating on it because they're successful or anything, but it's just like, first off, you watch their live show and they do the thing that drives us batshit. I mean, what is that? I won't even say what it is. What drives us batshit at a live show?
When most of it's on a backing track?
That. They do that. You watch, there's 4 guys on stage and you can kind of tell that they're all kind of barely playing their instruments. There's this thing about like when you play the bass, like if you watch Victor Wooten, you know, or Nels Cline on the guitar or whatever, like when they're handling that guitar, you see that they're manhandling that guitar. You know what I mean? And there's all this noise coming out, but you can just see in the hands all this. The guys like in Imagine Dragons or you know, it's in Coldplay or Neon Trees or whatever. Like you can almost always like look at the guitarist and like he's barely got one finger on the guitar. You know what I mean? Just kind of sliding it up and down. Or I know how to play guitar, so I know they're not playing it. But you don't have to play the guitar to look at that and know that. And I'm not saying that they're not playing like a little note that's coming through somewhere, but there's a lot of music going on that damn stage, and those 3 guys aren't doing it, you know.
I think that's the part that bothers me though, is when they're trying to pass it as they're the ones doing it.
Yeah,
because like if you go see, like I saw Wye Oak play, it's just 2 people. It's, you know, male and a female. He's on the drums, she's jumping from guitar, bass, and keyboard, but you can see him triggering the loops and, you know, telling everything to happen when it's happening. Like he's still performing the hell out of it, and they're not trying to pass it on that all this sound is just coming from the 2 of them. And I think that's the difference, right?
Yeah.
Like I saw Muse years ago. And I like Muse. I think they're great, man. But I saw them out in Provo, and I was like, where
Muse
the hell?
is a bit different in that the guitarist's hand. He's a good guitarist.
Awesome.
Yeah.
But there's other stuff going on. I was like, well, where the hell is that coming from? And where's the other harmonies coming from? And then there were like some keyboard parts, and I could see off stage there was a dude right off stage playing the keyboard part. And I was like, well, why doesn't he just come out and play?
Yeah.
You know? Yep. So that's the part. Like, and I'm not bashing on him or anything, because I've thought about this a lot, where I think where nowadays you're not making the majority of your money as a musician from record sales. Because once it's released, I mean, people download it for free or whatever. So you got to go perform. And I think that's caused artists to think that they have to perform a perfect, you know, duplication of what's on the CD. But for me, I want to see a live show. I don't want it to be exactly perfect.
I think it's partially perfect duplication, but it's partially also too is that what makes all the youngsters think the music's so great about that Grammy stuff is the production. And the production of those super high quality producers is extreme. Like they're throwing in a damn symphony in there. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's not just 2 or 3 performers. If you really wanted that live performance, you'd need 100 players on that stage. And on top of that, some sort of electrical instrument that's making some sounds that you don't get out of any other instrument. You know what I mean? Like especially with beats. You know what I mean? And bands like Imagine Dragons for sure are benefiting from electrical, sounds and beats while they have that little band out there too. And so adding in all that extra production really just makes it seem like it's just blowing away the youngsters who don't know that that's not coming from the 3 people on the stage there. But yeah, it drives me nuts too when they try to pass it off as that, and then like you have like the 2 guys in the background do come in for harmonies, and it's the damned Mormon Tabernacle Choir back there. Those two guys made those 95 voices shit. Is what you're telling me?
Yeah.
Yeah,
and it's like that with anything. It's like, you got those magicians trying to pass it off that they actually have like real magic powers,
but
versus
that's like the image, man. That's the image, and that's why like Neon. Yeah, I've talked shit on the Utah bands like that over here. This maybe someday in the future, but they'd have to go way past. And these are bands that we've been on some of the same stages with back in the day. I don't think ever on the same night, but like
right.
we played in the same places and stuff like that. And Neon Trees, I'm pretty sure that they could even play like live, just those guys without.
Oh yeah.
But they they go and they put on these things that you for sure are just hearing this overproduction thing, and it's just, I don't know, it's boring. Well, maybe not to some little kid, but then on top of it too, we know because we once played in a band that had that thing going on, and you can even kind of start making mistakes, and it's like largely unnoticed because of that backing track, and
yeah, and it's just, I don't know. I think there's people who they don't just play to a backing track, they trigger things and bring things in electronically. Like when we saw Radiohead in Phoenix, I mean, I was blown away watching like Johnny Greenwood run around stage triggering all these different things, picking up the guitar, playing the keyboard. I mean, just fucking on drums. Everybody in that band is so goddamn gifted, but they're pulling it off live. Like that is their goal.
Yeah,
right.
And what's so amazing is the stadium sound that they get out of that. And I'm more than positive that if you had Imagine Dragons playing a stadium with just them playing, they could not make a stadium sound.
Right.
It would not sound like it belonged in a stadium at all. They need that electronic backing to sound like they belong in the freaking stadium. Because just those 2 guitarists who obviously aren't anything special, and that drummer are not gonna blow away an auditorium, like that big.
Right.
And but I guess my bitch about that is like it should then be like Dr. Dog or Wilco or Radiohead, where you bring all those people, like bring them all out, or even if there is like an electronic person playing, have that electronic person out there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, unless they're just, because maybe the majority of people don't notice that stuff because the majority of people aren't playing instruments. I don't know.
It's
like why cater? Like if you're a comedian, are you going to try to cater to other comedians, or are you going to just cater to people who find you funny?
Yeah,
like real people that find you
and then
funny.
Bringing all those other people in a band is more people to pay, and then it gets expensive and shit. But
right, and to do that, you're gonna have a handful of critics be like, "Cool, they're doing it live."
Well, for
whereas
sure, Imagine
they
Dragons
don't have
isn't
to do that.
off.
The majority of people are gonna still think that's amazing. I'm paying big money for this.
They aren't showing off for me, that's for sure. But
I'm just saying, at the end of the day, if you're like doing this and you just want to make money doing it, What do you care? You know, for me, I
I don't care. I don't care that they do it.
I care when they try to hide that they're doing it.
I don't. I just don't want to watch it. Like, but that's getting back to why we got on Imagine Dragons is that my nephew wants me to teach them the songs. You know,
I forgot about that.
And it's only like, well, I'm teaching them Believer, and it's only got like 3 chords in it, but the chords are really just kind of 2 little notes picked. But actually, it's kind of a disappointment to my nephew because, like, I don't think he picked out that, like, well, do you hear this little thing? Like, there's this huge production going on. I'm like, well, what's the guitar? Well, do you hear this little thing in the background going? That's the guitar part. You know what I mean? I know it looks like there's one guitar out on stage and he's making all that sound, but the actual sound that's coming from the guitar is just these 2 little notes going.
So your nephew thought he was going to be playing this guitar and it was going to be the whole song?
And that song literally just does that the whole time on the guitar. Chorus, verse, everything. And you can just barely kind of pick it out of the all the other music going on. You know what I mean?
Right.
And when I learned the songs that I liked when I was a kid, like we were going right into power chords and I was playing those songs. I mean, not right away because it's hard to play right away, but like, I don't know.
What songs were you learning?
The first songs I ever learned was some
on guitar.
Santana and Guns N' Roses, but that was just because my teacher would kind of let me choose, and then it was pretty quickly straight Beatles. My teacher was played in a band called, I think they called themselves Imagine or Magical Mystery Tour or something like that. And they were actually pretty darn famous Beatles impersonation band. Like they played with symphonies around and stuff, and
did the bass player even go left-handed?
Like, they did they had all the exact equipment, all the exact clothes. They even would like research stage movements and stuff like that, and they researched and made sure that they played every song just like the Beatles played them, because, like, you know, you can get 1,000 different versions or claims that they played it this way or that way or this or that one, and they really made sure that they played the songs just like the Beatles played them, and so pretty quickly I got interested in that, and he just took me, I mean, on a whole Beatles tour. A Beatles learning curve is a good learning curve to learn the guitar. You know what I mean? Start early Beatles, go to end Beatles, and that was the next long time. And then,
weren't you afraid of your guitar teacher?
Yeah, I was. I was really afraid of him. We know another guy locally who went to the same guy too. He said he was pretty cool with him, but one of my best friends also took lessons from him, and we used to, if we didn't practice, there was one week I didn't practice. I usually practice. He made my friend cry a few times. There was one week that I didn't practice, and I went to the place, I remember, and I hid under a bench. My parents dropped me off, and I hid under a bench. I didn't want him to find me, and he came out and found me and dragged me out.
Oh, shit.
Upstairs, and I was like, oh, my gosh. And
how old were you?
Oh, 12, 13 or something.
You were hiding under a bench as a 13-year-old?
I was scared of him, man. He would really bark at us and yell at us and make us feel stupid and all that sort. And if we didn't practice, he just did not have it. And I didn't practice that week, and I was like, oh no, you know. And yeah, he wasn't goofing around. We were scared to death of him. But
didn't he just pass away?
He did. Yeah, he had a stroke. He was pretty young.
How old was he?
I don't know, but I mean, he still had full head black hair. You know, he was. I don't know. He had to be under 60 still. You know?
Huh. I wonder how many of his students like really did something with what they learned from him. You know, like how many people did he really mentor?
He was like, we have another friend named Joe who's like a guitar whiz, but I've seen one better, and that was this guy. I mean, he was he knew everything. He played everything. He could do everything. He had perfect pitch, like for real perfect pitch. Like if you brought, he'd teach you any song that you wanted to learn, and if you brought in a song to him, you'd put it in. He'd never heard the song before, but he'd write it out for you before even picking up his own guitar. Like he just grabbed the papers and
What?
Yeah, didn't even need to pick up the guitar. And anybody would back me up on that. Ask Jack or ask.
Is that something you
Aaron.
can learn or no?
You can learn relative pitch, which is you can get really good at the intervals, but you might not. Real perfect pitch is like if we haven't been around a guitar for a week and we're walking out in the wilderness, I could ask you what E is and you could hum E at me. You know what I mean?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
But you can.
So relative is like, a fifth or a third when you're playing it. You have to have the root note first, and then you can.
So if you have relative, between the that pitches. Perfect relative pitch, but not exact perfect pitch. If we're walking out there, you could give me a starting note. It might be close to E, but it might not exactly be E.
But somebody with perfect pitch would know exactly what E is.
It would be E. Not only would it be E, it would drive them crazy if you sang not E. You know what I mean? Like they know E. You know what I mean? And they know if it's not exactly on E. And I knew a guy in high school who had perfect pitch.
Now, is it something that they learn or develop, or is it just some genetic thing that allows them to hear?
Maybe it's genetic or not, but like Chinese people, since their language is pitch oriented, they have a really high amount of people who have perfect pitch. Like it's like 80% or something like that. Don't quote me on that number, but it's high. You know what I mean? It's really high, and it's because from a young age it's part of that same thing about language and all that stuff you talked about, like how elastic your brain is when you're little.
Mm-hmm.
And for sure, there's still some biology in there. Like some people probably just can't. But I think if pitches are trained very, very insistently from a super young age, I think you can be likely to get a perfect pitch thrown in there. And having perfect pitch doesn't necessarily mean you're a good musician.
No, it might make you.
It might make stuff harder on you, but there's also some people with perfect pitch who never picked up an instrument in their life. You know what I mean? It's just you just know where E is, and but then there's people who develop perfect kind of relative pitch in the sense of they might not be able to, if we've been walking for a week, tell you exactly what E is. I bet you they'd be able to get close or even get it sometimes, but they might not be exact. But then if they choose a starting note, they can sing the perfect interval of a fifth from that note, and then a perfect interval to an eighth from that note, and then a perfect interval of, and there's people who really develop that really, really well, especially like professional singers or professional choir singers, because a lot of them will sight read, and when they're sight reading, they'll sing songs and sight read and do it almost perfectly, just sight reading a song they've never seen before, just like a piano player who knows how to read music.
Mm-hmm.
If they've never seen a song before, but the music's written out there, they could play it, and it would be pretty close to the song with some of the inflections a little off. A lot of those those really professional singers can get like that. I've never heard this song before, but just following those notes right there and the words, I can sing it, just from the paper.
That's pretty wild.
Yeah.
Because, you do that with words, right? When you read a book and read it out loud, you're pronouncing it, but how to pronounce it with the notes, like that probably didn't make any sense.
You doing the words and the singing?
Yeah, man. So like, if I'm reading a book out loud to you, Dr. Seuss, the inflection can be anywhere.
Yeah.
But I'm reading it. So, I know how to read. I know how to do it, but they're actually reading.
Intervals. They're seeing the intervals.
Yeah, the notes. That's pretty weird. Because I usually have to hear something.
If you're in any sort of decent choir, and we had to do it a lot when I was in high school choirs. I was in some pretty elite choirs in my high school, but I never was like, of course not like that good, but I'm still not that good. Like it, and just naked right now, you know, I'll give you an eighth. Here's an eighth. You know, no, I can't sing that, but I could sing it if I was like, here it is on the notes, ding, ding, you know, I could, you know, but I couldn't pull it out of my head, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But in those choirs, they start training you. Like you always have sight reading days where you sit there and start. We're gonna sight read this right from the start, and you have to sight read at the start with those because there's 4 different parts. You know what I mean? And so like you're gonna have to try to read the tenor line and sing it and
Mm-hmm.
and sing along with. The first time you play through any song in a choir, the first time you're doing it, you're trying to sight read it. But especially like a young high school choir, it was rough, you know, like the first time we sing through a song, it wasn't, there's 1 or 2 guys really good, and the rest of us would kind of try to follow them as we read it.
How'd you get into choir?
My older brother was in it. My older brother is like a superstar singer. Like he was in BYU's men's chorus, which is another famous chorus. Like they have actual albums out and all that stuff. And he'll probably one day be a tabernacle singer if he cares to do it. But he's got like a real operatic voice and went through years of vocal singing and all that stuff. And then he was like the lead of when you were a junior, my older brother was the lead of the play.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like a lead both years. Like, so like when you were a sophomore and when you were a junior, my brother was the lead of the play. So he was a really good, really kind of well-known singer. And then a lot of people from the choir world knew me even coming into high school. It's like, oh, you're Tim Hanna's brother. You're Tim Hanna's brother. You know, and for a long time I was Tim Hanna's brother.
Mm-hmm.
And he was really good, really good singer, and was in those choirs. And then when he went and did those choirs, they just looked like a lot of fun. They do a lot of fun stuff. They went on a lot of trips. They went on and just sang a whole lot. And there's girls there, you know. So I said, I want to try that too, and just went and tried and did it. But I didn't have the training that he had. You know, I sometimes
Did you hook
wish
it
I
up
did.
with any girls?
Yeah.
No, you didn't.
Not then, but since one of their magicals, like, yeah, for sure.
She have a unibrow?
Yeah. Well, where? No, yeah, I'm not lying. I'm telling the truth. But no, I mean that was way after. But it was, I don't know. It was also a class out of the day that you got to do instead of that. And you got out of class, you got out of school all the time to go sing at places. And
Yeah, you still have to keep up with all your other homework.
yeah,
It's
that's
not like
so
you're getting
tough
out
in
of
high school.
I don't think I ever did my homework.
Exactly,
and
man.
I don't know how I graduated high school, to be honest with you.
I don't know how anybody.
I just think they felt sorry for me. They're like,
oh man,
hey, he's not a bad
just
kid.
So easy,
you just,
man. And
yeah, but you got to turn your stuff in. I never turned anything in.
Yeah, I try to think back on any work I did in high school too. I don't remember a darn thing that I learned. You know what I mean?
Mm-mm.
But I do remember the choir stuff. You know, learning something. I'm still using some of that to this day. You know, a lot of singing, especially
through a lot of classes.
I taught you and another guy, Jeff, a little bit about how we needed to blend vowels together a bit better because the way you say vowels and consonants changes when there's multiple. You know, you shouldn't just do it like a single person singing.
Give me the example.
We went over it several times, if you remember. Like the way you hold your O's or ahs,
yeah.
and when you finish them off, like
yep.
I, like you want your ahs to be, or you want it to really be you know, right at the very end.
How's that again?
Diphthong it off. You know, but we went over that and the consonants and stuff when you want them to hit. So when you're singing in a group, you can't just pronounce like you want to pronounce. The group to make a group of voices say a word, that group has to say the word a little bit different than you would say it normally to make it sound like the group said the word. It's a weird dynamic. You know what I mean? Like, because it won't. If everybody just said, what's the word? Why is too easy because it's so short, but like all right, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
If like a whole group's just going all right all at the same time, it's going to just sound like, you know.
Right.
They really have to focus on all right, you know, and then just kind of, especially if it's held out across a song. So for that word to still end up sounding like it's saying all right, you have to do these techniques to make the whole group sound like they said the same word.
Gotcha.
You know.
Yes.
And it's not, and we went over a lot.
You
of
learned
stuff.
that in band camp?
Yeah, I learned that in choir in high school and band camp. But yeah, I remember that more than I remember. Well, I don't know. I played football too. Maybe I forgot a lot, getting banged in the head all the time. But I don't know. I remember a little bit of science. I learned a little bit of science in high school.
I remember in biology watching a show. I don't know why they played us that. It was in high school, and it was just like a bunch of different animals having sex.
Oh, I saw that too. I saw that in elementary school.
And I remember,
I remember a kid barfed during that, and I was happy he barfed because like it stopped the show because I didn't want to watch the show anymore either.
I don't know why they showed that to us. Like that was one thing I remembered, and there were two scenes that I remembered distinctly. The one was this elephant, right?
I still distinctly remember the
this
barf.
This elephant
it
comes
was
by.
Carrots.
And
there
then
was carrots in the barf.
Oh, gross. The second elephant comes behind, and the trunk goes up, and then there's this second trunk.
I saw that video, man. That's the video I'm talking about.
There was a second trunk.
That
it
video
was its
caused...
penis.
You remember diced carrots that you'd have?
Yeah, man.
That video that you're talking about put diced carrots all over the floor in front of us, and they had to stop the video and clear the room out. And I was happy that the kid barfed.
Did you see the turtles?
Yeah.
The two turtles are
good.
fighting over a female turtle, and they're like charging each other really slowly. And then the one hooks the other one underneath his shell and flips him on his back. So he's on his back.
I remember.
And the other one goes over and mounts the female. And the other one's just on his back, and he has to watch.
Yeah, and then he can't ever get back up.
No.
He die that way.
Well, unless somebody comes over and puts him back on his feet. But, like, that was disturbing. Is what I'm trying to tell you. I'm like,
but why
16.
is it disturbing? Because he technically lost. Like
He has
that
to
wasn't
sit
his
and
woman.
watch.
It'd be disturbing if it was his wife, but but he didn't win her yet. You know what I mean? That's like
Yeah,
you. That's like you. Would you feel okay? So is there some guy who is hot for your wife? If he lost out on her and you were getting with her, would you feel bad for him?
That would be weird, man.
If he's
my point proven. Like, you don't want to be there. If I get defeated, if I'm going after a woman and some other guy outdates me or whatever, you know, I don't want to be there when they're hanging out.
But you're the winner.
No, that's not what I just said.
But not. But
if I'm the if I'm the winner,
you're thinking of the world wrong. You got to think yourself as the one who always won that fight.
Well, if I was the winner, I wouldn't want to do it in front of the loser either.
You're empathizing with the loser.
Would you want to do it in front of the dude?
Yeah.
That you just beat?
There's been some dudes in my life that would have been like, yeah, I got your girl.
You're so full of shit, man.
No, I would not like to do that, but...
Okay, so anyway, why did they play that movie to us?
I'm telling you, it was like 5th grade, man.
Nah, that was high school.
I saw that video in 5th grade.
Why?
And I think I saw it again in high school.
Why?
I don't know. Because they're trying to show you that...
They didn't even show us, like, real people having sex.
Well,
I had to watch that someplace else. More messed up than turtles and elephants.
You think they should show kids pornography, like human pornography, to teach them about sex?
They showed us animal porn.
It'd be better to show human porn?
Well, that should have been part of the movie. Maybe it was. Maybe we didn't get that far into it.
No, there's no way it would have been. In Utah, man, that would have been shut right
So
down.
why are they... it's weird.
I can't believe they got that
weird.
far with that stuff in Utah. But, yeah, they forced us to watch it. I still remember. I know the kid's name who puked. Yeah, I remember that day. I was feeling the same way. I wanted to puke too. But I do remember some stuff, other stuff from a biology class in high school. I don't remember crap for math, and I keep, like, myself, over the years, there's been times where I go, like, I'm going to go to graduate school and get an MBA, and then, like, oh, I got to pass the stupid GMAT. And I think I always have to start at the beginning of math again. I could do it again, but it's been 15 years, and I literally have to like start back at the freaking beginning.
Did you take math from that guy who got in that really bad Volkswagen Bug accident?
No. Who's that?
At the high school, at Murray High. I can't remember his name.
I remember Mr. Barnes.
He walked kind of funny because he got in like a really bad accident.
Mostert?
Sounds familiar.
Nah, he was the cross country coach with like the Schwilb. Did he have
he was a short guy. He limped because this all happened. Like he one day brought in this like book with all the pictures of the fucking Volkswagen Bug that he was in that got in the wreck, and it is unreal that he survived that shit.
I don't even know who it is. I only remember.
That's what I remember from math. I don't remember math. Him? I remember him from math.
I remember. One of my coaches was a math teacher. I never had him, Coach Bauman. I remember Mr. Barnes. I just got so bored with him that I couldn't pay attention in class.
Barnes was boring. He taught history.
Did he?
Didn't he? I think so.
And then Mostert, who I think everybody said was a pretty good math teacher.
Huh.
But I heard he got fired from that school for some
Shop
reason.
was cool, man. I made a really cool cedar chest that my daughter has.
I never got to do shop. I never got to do shop. That's probably where choir made me miss out. You know what I mean? But Mostert, to bring this back around maybe to the Grammys in a bit, Mostert I heard got terminated for some weird shiz.
What do you mean?
Some Time's Up shiz. Maybe not.
Time's
allegedly. Up. Time's Up is the new thing they're saying instead of Me Too.
What do you mean?
You know the Me Too movement?
Yeah.
They say Time's Up now. They changed it to Time's Up.
Why?
Because your time's up. You don't get to molest people for free anymore. As if anybody did. That's what's such bullshit. Because that's half of the stuff.
Time's Up.
It's called Time's
Hashtag
Up. See, look at this. You're not
up.
even. It was all through the Golden Globes and the Grammys. It's Time's Up. They changed it to Time's Up instead of Me Too. I think because the Me Too movement was really started by people who weren't on the inside circle, and so they wanted to make their own. And so they started saying "Time's up, your time's up," and like they're sitting there saying that at the Grammys, like that whole crowd isn't. You just didn't like hear their collective buttholes pucker up, like we are all guilty, you know. But what's driving me crazy with what's driving me crazy with that stuff, man, is like it's getting lectures from people who perpetrate it 1,000,000 times worse than the common people, and their time's up. Guess what, knuckle fucks? Our times were up 30 years ago. HR departments and you know, harassment terminations and retrainings have been going on in the regular world for 30 years. You're acting like it's this new movement, you bunch of dickholes. You guys have been living on a different plane. We've been, that bubble burst a long time ago for the common worker, and you guys are acting like you just figured it out and now you're the bosses of it, and now you're the ones who are able to tell all the poor common man what to do. Like, hey, you guy working in the office job in Kansas, stop fucking your secretary and making her do it. Like, we're not rock stars, assholes. We can't do that. We'll get fired in 10 seconds.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, the other argument too is how you hear a lot of people like, I can't believe he would do that. I can't believe he would do that. And it's like, well, there's another flip side to it. Like, when have you, the common guy, the ugly duckling, ever had women throwing themselves at you?
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, people will be like, oh, I can't believe that famous guy would cheat on his wife or do this or that. You know, like, you just see so much sex stuff going on, but it's like, when have you ever been in a situation where you had hot, attractive women or men, vice versa, whatever, just throwing themselves
Rock
at you?
Says people are only as faithful as their options. You know?
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying. And I'm not condoning any of it. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying, like, for the average person to be like, I can't believe he would do that. It's like, well, until you've been in his shoes and in that position, you might be just as capable of being a monster too, right?
Yeah, some partially employed pud who hasn't even been to school or anything, and they're 30-something years old. I'm not gonna say like living in their parents' basement because that's tired and cliche, but I just mean they're nobodies, and large gaggles of women don't want them, and they have no idea what they would be like if large gaggles
Exactly.
of women did.
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So, going around judging people until you've actually been in their situation is a hard thing to do. And that doesn't condone any of the horrific shit they did. It's just, everybody has the capability to be bad and good inside of them. Would you agree with that?
Well, yeah, of course. But that's not an acceptable narrative nowadays. But even some of the things like that they're claiming are bad aren't that bad either. There's levels, and you saw them flip the shit out at Matt Damon because he dared say that there's levels. And better not say that right now. Oh. But
what exactly happened? I think I read about that.
Matt Damon, and some other people have come out since, but it first started with Matt Damon, just in an interview said a basic objective truth that patting on the butt's not as bad as rape. And he got chewed out and flipped out on and freaked out on because, oh, you stupid man, why are you trying to diminish like what all these different women are going through?
Right.
You should just shut up and take a back seat for a while now, because how dare you parse it out like that, And not only is it different in criminal law, it's different in civil law, it's different in the laws of the workplace. It's different. It's nobody's saying both one's good and one's bad. Everything is so in a weird like borderline way. It's got to be one or the other. Everything's black or white, black or white. It's not black or white. Both are bad, but one's worse.
Right.
And that's all sorts of law. We have all sorts of jurisprudence in the United States that kind of have already figured this stuff out in a fairly decent way for maybe 50, 60 years now. But now we're going to boil people in the court of public opinion first instead of leaving it to that jurisprudence and the law and that sort of thing. It's a cultural movement. It's stupid.
Strange times.
It is strange times.
But what do you think the most strange thing is right now? Like in your world and your observation of the world, what is the thing that trips you out the most? Like, oh man, this is some strange times.
I think what's making everything so strange and wonky and out of control right now is actually something that might turn out to be an ultimate good, but I think it is just the internet, and that anybody can talk to anybody in 2 seconds. We're here talking, and maybe somebody in Sweden someday might listen to it way in the future. Who knows? Maybe not. You never know what starts picking up or what doesn't. You know what I mean? And the internet's a weird time that now we are now all exposed or possibly exposed to all of the world right now.
I don't think it's healthy.
No, it isn't. But because for sure.
Do you ever think we're going to get to the point where we can handle all that information? Like us as humans?
No, I think part of the stuff with all of that net neutrality and all that sort of stuff, what's going to actually happen over time is that it's going to start becoming less and less free and less open. Just like the Wild West, man. Just like you watched the
Deadwood?
TV show Deadwood.
Yeah.
And we are really in like the beginning muddy, slumpy times of those
internet world.
Yeah, well, if to put it into Deadwood terms of the Black Hills where all the gold was, and so as everybody pushed out west, it was chaos because there wasn't really rule of law out there, and there wasn't really people bossing and taking it over, and then that really ends up kind of being the story of how chaotic places become civilized.
Right.
But they almost get a bit civilized not because people stop and go, hey, we're good people, let's civilize this. It's actually more just kind of like a weird sociopathic process that it becomes civilized. You know what I mean? one guy comes, fights for his rights. Next guy comes, fights for his rights. Another bigger, stronger guy comes. They all group together, fight for their rights, and then pretty soon you got to completely shifting. Yeah, and then almost always like there's a group of people who hate each other, but then a worse bad guy comes and they join together.
Right.
And then they hate each other, and then a worse bad guy comes and they join together, and that's almost kind of how civilization happens. You know, it's always just kind of, and the town goes getting constructed over that, and laws go getting put in place because of that. And
dude, Deadwood was so good. Why did it get cut short?
Well, they keep teasing us saying that a movie's gonna come out, but the internet's kind of in that spot where it was the Wild West, complete Wild West for a while. Now it's kind of like getting sloppy, and people are fighting, and now they're fighting to restrict it and change it, and I bet you over time, unfortunately, just like everything else, like television, like whatever, it's going to slowly start getting bit by bit a little bit more restricted, is my belief. But right now,
that's scary in a couple of ways, like, because I kind of see the pros and the cons. Like,
just today,
life used to be more simple without it. Hold on, let me finish. Life used to be more simple without it, but now, do you want to go through life ignorantly? Like, do you want it to go away? Do you want to not be able to look up anything you want at any time?
No, I mean, I think
because life was more simple, but you'd have to go back to like living a certain level of ignorance where you could be swayed one way or the other with any sort of propaganda at all, because it just isn't there free for you to research as easily. But
at the same time, too, in weird ways, more propaganda gets around faster in other weird ways. And
fake news.
Yeah, but I think it's a net good, but the story of it's not done. It could still go really bad. But I was going to say, just today, Germany passed a law saying that different things, if they're deemed offensive online, could cause the social media platform to have to pay like $650,000 if they don't remove it within 24 hours.
Whoa.
And it's really
so that's
loose.
Just a
it's
censorship,
really loosely based.
Huge censorship.
Yeah.
Oof.
It's really... they've been talking about that for a while, but Europe's already had a lot more censorship laws than the U.S. has. Like, they have laws against different speech things. Like, it's illegal to deny the Holocaust in Europe. You can deny it here. You're not going to go to jail, but you can go to jail for denying it in England and Germany.
Really?
Yeah.
So what's the rationale behind that?
They have hate speech laws, and there's specific things that you can't say or say online or advertise, or you might go to jail for it.
It gets a little scary.
There's a big crazy case right now in Ireland where this dude taught his pug to do Hail Hitler signs on YouTube. You can watch the video.
Are
it's
you
really
serious?
funny. He taught him also that gas the Jews meant walk.
What?
He was joking. He was joking with the dog. He's like, gas the Jews. And the dog would get excited. Like, and he thought it was funny. He was laughing. You can watch the video. It's only like 2 minutes long. He's been on trial for like 2 years, and he's facing like a year in prison for it. But
Holy
they keep dragging out the trial for it. It's for this dumb little video where he's obviously joking. But you can't.
Whoa.
You can't joke about. I guess you can't joke about Nazi things over in England. You know?
So how does that work? I mean, is it possible that laws could work like retroactively? Is that the right word? Like, say you did something like that before it was the law.
Yeah.
And then it becomes the law. Can they go back and be like, this is something you did before? Or does he grandfathered
on
in?
the internet, it's if it gets flagged or told to be taken down, then they have 24 hours to take it down. But that gets really loose too, because who's deciding? And in a lot of these cases, it's just somebody just deems it offensive, and that's enough, you know. And, I think that stuff's gonna get.
But where does it end? Because I mean, you've seen a lot of people's careers be ruined by something that was researchable 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
right? Like everything you do, every picture you post, every comment you make, and you put it on the internet, it's there forever.
Yeah.
And so you see some people get famous and then they go back and find out dirt on them, and their careers are ruined from something that they did a long time ago.
There's some stuff like that. There's do you know the Young Turks?
Yes.
They are internet news station, maybe the biggest internet news station, like as far as views.
Mm-hmm.
The main guy of that, who actually is a really kind of progressive guy, or at least that show's been pushing progressive things over the years. He got found out just about a month ago that he was maybe 15 years ago writing blogs about how women are the inferior sex because they should want sex more often, and that if they don't give him orgasms by the 5th date, he kicks him to the curb, and all that sorts of stuff. And he got removed from like a whole political movement for it and all that stuff. And he's from one of those shows, but that in those situations, they reap what they sow, man. The snake eats its own tail.
Yeah, but is it possible that somebody could create all that shit and it's not real? Like, could you cyber destroy somebody?
There is something. There's people talking about it right now. Right now, you can still pretty much look back on that stuff, but you should see some of the stuff. I saw it on Joe Rogan a little bit of how you can take the face and the speaking of anybody and start to make it
right. And if they have enough audio of themselves on the internet, they can harvest that and make it sound like you're saying shit.
Yeah. However, I think all those things are, if you know how to piece apart the digital stuff, easy to see like where stuff's faked, but the world's so dumb on stuff now that you could, like they say, the lies traveled halfway around the world before the truth gets out of bed, you know. Mm-hmm. There for sure could be some crap with that. Although Photoshop's been able to do that for a long time, and Photoshop definitely had a little time frame where it was pulling some shit on people, but I think for the most part, most Photoshop stuff gets found out and doesn't really.
To a degree, don't you think there's a lot of like fitness magazines that are Photoshop big time
those for sure.
And people buy into that? Those they believe that stuff. They're like, oh, she really looks that way, and it's like, it's Photoshopped.
Those for sure, but the ones where like people were trying to make larger claims, like a ghost or somebody doing something horrible or something like that, those ones get found out pretty quick. But absolutely, you can see the photoshopping, and they're almost not even hiding it in a lot of the.
But it's a big business, though. Like the National Enquirer, all those magazines where it's just total bullshit lies about all the famous people. Some people gobble that up as like real deal stuff.
That's true. Yeah, there's
right.
It's for sure going to happen with that voice and.
I worked with a girl who read that shit all the time, and I was like, that's not real, right? And she's like, got all embarrassed and stuff because in her world, all that gossip, all that fake news with the celebrities is like real drama.
Yeah, I guess it's addicting. There's obviously people who buy the flat earth stuff now and
Are you sure? You don't think that's just a big troll?
I think, okay, so
I bet it started as a troll.
It started as a troll for sure. It for sure started as a troll. It came from 4chan. Those guys are always trolling. But there's like Eddie Bravo on Joe Rogan's show. He believes it, man. That guy believes it. He's not trolling.
I don't think so.
Do you think he's not trolling, man? He thinks every conspiracy in the world is real, and there's guys like that, man.
But he's like a really smart dude in so many other ways, though. That's the conundrum, right? That's the part that
they're just like almost like paranoid conspiracy. Like if there's something that the man's doing something to us, and it's all a big trick, it's got to be true, and like there's a desire for that to be so.
But he's kind of a smart dude. Like when it comes to fighters,
smart. There's a lot of smart
details about so many things.
There's this book that came out years ago that I can't repeat it a whole lot right now because I don't remember all the details, but I know it has answers for a lot of the stuff in it. It's called Why People Believe Strange Things, and it's by Michael Shermer, and he goes into like a lot of the details of why smart people, because even if that one's so obviously stupid, everybody's believing something stupid. Right now, we're all believing something stupid.
What's the dumbest thing you believe?
Well, I don't know, because if I knew, I'd probably try to stop believing it. But
what's the... For real, what's the dumbest thing?
Well, because if I'm going to say it's the dumbest thing, it's because I don't really believe it. You know what I mean? But like, I'm always one to. I have this thing called FYOFC, which I believe no matter what, there's a car that's going to like be in your blind spot and run into you no matter what, because it's just like, it's what's that law, like Poe's law, what can go wrong will go wrong. Like if you are driving, if you want to lane change, a car just appeared in your blind spot and it's going to be in your blind spot, and just believe.
Why is that dumb?
Because there's not always in my blind spot. It's
pretty much
it's selective
in Utah driving.
So this is one of those things about
save your life, man. That's a religion.
It is save your life. It's a pragmatic. It's pragmatic.
Just assume there's always a car.
It's pragmatic, but the bottom line is it's not true. There's not always a car. But I believe it on like almost a religious level. You know what I mean? Like there is a car in my blind spot right now, and I'm telling you, one of the reasons I talk about that is it doesn't matter in like rush hour traffic. It's pretty good to believe there's a car in your ass. But I'm telling you, like 3 a.m. driving through a damn neighborhood, and you can almost like think to yourself, I'm alone here. I'll just lane change myself anyway. I've been in enough situations where, how is there a guy in my blind spot right now? I didn't even see the lights or anything, and he's right in my ass, and I'm in the middle of nowhere, and you know, that's where it comes from. So like no matter how alone I think I am, I assume somebody just appeared in my blind spot somehow, and I check it. And that might save me like in the long run for sure. But the truth of the matter is that no, a lot of times there's not somebody there. You know what I mean? But I still in the end, that's like, I don't really believe that. So that's not, you know, that's not what's the dumbest thing you believe? Like it's hard to say like what's the dumbest thing you believe, because if you admit it, you're kind of admitting you don't believe it.
The dumbest thing that I believe. That's a tough one, man. I'm trying to think.
Maybe the dumbest thing we believe is that people are going to turn back to real band music and not this overproduced image shit. Hyper stimuli. I mean, that stuff's all hyper stimuli. You know what I mean? Not.
Well, it's not a matter of if we turn back. It's because those bands are there. They're there. It's a matter of the masses choosing to value authenticity more than what they're being spoon-fed.
So is that the dumb thing we're believing?
Probably, but I've seen them. They're coming up, man.
People
Dr. Dog.
Returning to the classical style of real meaning and playing and stuff.
Yeah, a lot of bands are coming up.
They're coming up, and there's for sure still people who like them, but I'm talking about the Grammys aren't going to be that ever again, and the Grammys really are what's making the most money.
But who's watching the Grammys?
More people than watch the NPR Tiny Desk concert. By a lot.
Right. But is that the audience you want?
No, it's not. But what I'm saying is like there's a part of me that like has this weird belief that the world will go back to that. You know what I mean? Like it will, because at one point in time, like the Mamas and the Papas were as big as, like the Mamas and the Papas would be Tiny Desk concert stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And at one point in time, the Mamas and the Papas were as big as Kendrick Lamar. You know what I mean? And like in my brain, my thought that there's like the Mamas and the Papas will come back and be at the Grammys again. I'm not talking about the Mamas and Papas. I'm just talking about 4 people who sing well. You know,
right?
What I mean? Or because even at the I dislike that Pentatonics band. Oh my, they're just
I can tell you're like distraught about this.
Well, because the Mamas and Papas are really good singers. That's what I was talking about. Is the 4 singers, or like ABBA or whatever. Not saying I even like that music, but they're talented. You know what I mean? They were talented group singers. This band Pentatonics is a what's it called? An a cappella group, but it's so fake I could blow my head off. Like they're so they're so obviously auto-tuned all the way through, inside out, upside down. Their music's more electronic. They're an a cappella group, And I'm telling you, they are more electronicized than anything from
How do you even
Imagine
know about
Dragons.
these guys?
Oh, they're huge.
Pentatonics?
They're huge.
Hmm.
They're at Grammys and stuff like that. My little niece is into them, but yeah, they keep dropping these songs of them covering these big bands, and it sounds so amazing. Like, I can't believe these 5 guys are making these, because they're not. It's straight up taking voices and auto-tuning the living hell out of them. I'm not saying that those guys can't sing normally, but it's auto-tuned to a level of production. Like, you're taking it and making... You've just taken their voices and put it into piano keys and stuff like that, and just the way they're able to stop and start without any resonance, and you can just hear it. You can hear it's 100% produced, digitally produced. You know, it's not real voices doing that stuff. But the dumb thing I still believe is a band like the Mamas and the Papas, who would be like real group of 4 good singers, might become big again, singing for really real.
Yeah, but what if it's just different now? Like, what if it's the Grammys are going to be what they are and it's just going to fizzle out? What if there's just some better platform coming up and is already here?
Yeah.
Like the Tiny Desk performances, or like
Yeah,
maybe those are like the Grammys for certain bands. You know what I'm saying?
I for sure think that.
Like
I
it's
don't
something
think,
inside the system that's coming up that'll probably end up working better than the Grammys. I don't think the Grammys is ever going to come back. Something's going to replace it that's better.
100%. I'm not trying to undo the Grammys. I 100% agree that that it's coming from somewhere else. What I'm just saying is the popularity. Like, I have like a belief that the popularity of the authentic stuff will become the most popular thing again.
It's possible, but
it's but that's what I'm saying. That's maybe a dumb belief, because some of that electronic stuff's not going away.
That belief,
it's too big and it's too mind blowing.
Yeah, but I'm saying that belief, in order for that belief to come true, the masses would have to take on the same taste for really good authentic music. And so that's why I feel like that's kind of not the best thing to believe would ever happen, because the majority of people would have to change their taste, right?
It's because it comes down to super stimuli. Man, those pop songs are cake. You know, they're not. I don't know how to describe it, like a deep coffee or something like that, where you have to like get used to the bitters or get used to the flavor of it to really dig a thing. You know, like there's all sorts of foods in the world that have like all sorts of different deeper flavors, but cake, like little kids are always just gonna want to eat cake. Just get cake. It's just kind of like, it tastes the sweetest. It's all got all big bangy sweet, best sweetness. Yum 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 yum. You know. Right. But it's just cake, you know, and but you do kind of like have a hope or belief that people in general could get into deeper flavors,
right? Not
some super stimuli flavor. The reason cake is so tasty and nothing and fattening is because it's just the super stimuli of sugar,
right?
You know, and but like anything, it gets more satisfying if you get into the deeper things and you cut out the cake, you know. But maybe not. Maybe people are just made to go down the road of always sticking to their super stimuli, and that's that.
Why not?
Well, there's no reason not to, I guess. So maybe that's a dumb belief. But we're still in a band. Still in a band after all these years.
It's fun. I love making music.
Yeah.
And I think it's challenging. It's rewarding.
I think what's challenging and rewarding about it is being authentic, or just speaking truth out the best you can. You know, I don't think I get why those super image celebrity musicians drive themselves crazy. Because like, if you really realize that all you are is kind of just this weird image, and you're not really speaking on any authenticity into the world, it'd be a prison in a way, you know.
Ugh.
You know.
Yeah, so don't ever pigeonhole yourself into a situation where you can't be your authentic you.
Yeah, and unfortunately too in the world, like your authentic you changes. But then again, there's a lot of people who change often in the music industry, but you can always tell that that's like a weird PR move too. Like Miley Cyrus came out last night supposedly all dressed like she's a good girl now, you know, and that's like a change back from being the...
Maybe she's an actor.
Yeah.
What? David Bowie said that in his documentary. The interviewer's like, so what's it like being like one of the best musicians in the world? He's like, I'm not a musician. I'm an actor.
Yeah.
And the guy goes on and on again. He's like, I already told you once, I'm an actor. That's why he took on all those different personas and stuff.
Yeah.
But he never claimed to not be that. He was claiming to be that. So I'm saying maybe she's an actor and she knows how to make dough.
Yeah.
Straight up.
Once again, back to why hate on. I don't hate on any of it. You just hope that the popularity of just authentic singing and writing stays up with it. You know.
Who's the most authentic in your mind? Like, who's your favorite musical artist? Just straight up authenticity.
Well, musically, past and present. Well, I mean, part of it I can't tell because like I don't know any people personally, but what seems most authentic to me is it's gotta be Wilco or Radiohead in the sense that both of them bucked off chances to be bubblegum, and the Beatles did that on one level too. That they became something bigger because they fought off the bubblegum pressures and insisted on being authentic. And I think the ones who had to fight big labels and big record companies to just keep saying what they mean to be saying instead of just churning out the hits that...
Would you say they're more like tempered?
Tempered?
Yeah, man. Like tempered steel or tempered glass is when you put it in extreme heat and then extreme cold and it makes it stronger.
Yeah.
Like bands that resist all that stuff tend to put out really good music and tend to stay together longer and tend to keep reaching and achieving new things.
The stuff seems authentic. It seems like everybody in the band is contributing, not just playing a part. That they're all really adding in a piece of themselves into the songs, and it seems like they're saying what they mean to be saying. But I can't say I know for sure who's most. I think Leonard Cohen. Leonard Cohen's probably the most authentic ever. Who would you say?
Me?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm a huge Tweedy fan. I love Jeff Tweedy. I think his lyrics are awesome. But I really like Dr. Dog, man.
Yeah, see, I haven't... I need to get into them. I've listened to at least 3 of their albums, and then one of their albums a whole lot. But I should listen to all of it more.
They're super authentic. I got you a ticket to see Dr. Dog live in June.
That'll be the second time I've seen him. But
I got us balcony seats.
That'll be the second time I saw him in the balcony. But yeah, they're way good. They're especially good live, and I definitely listen to. They have 2 or 3 songs I listen to again and again and again. But the whole entire gambit of it, I haven't gotten that far into it yet.
Oh man, they're good. They got deep lyrics, a lot of good lyrics, man.
I like the Dr. Dog concept and the Beatles concept better. I think in a weird way although in Radiohead, I don't know of anybody else trying to sing except maybe Ed O'Brien. I mean, he obviously sings. He's coming out with a solo album, isn't he?
Mm-hmm.
but he's never lead. He's never singing a lead in that band ever. And to me, that's usually a little bit of a slight authenticity red flag, in the sense of, well, both Tweedy and Tom York are obviously taken over as the only main songwriters and all that stuff, and surely there's other people in those bands who write and all that sort of stuff. And so that's one of the areas where I'd give Dr. Dog an edge. Like, 'cause I think whenever there's like a band where obviously if a good song is good, it goes, I think that's more authentic than well, he's the leader of the band. You know what I mean? Like, I think authentic is if a good song is good, it goes. And the Beatles definitely did that. And Dr. Dog is obviously doing that. And obviously with Pat and John and Wilco being in their own band and perfectly capable of writing and singing songs too. I mean, Jeff Tweedy's obviously crazy prolific, so it's probably hard to fit all that stuff in together with stuff, but it'd probably be more authentic if once in a while inside of Wilco we heard Pat and John singing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
John did once, but not much anymore. Do you know, didn't they fight about that or something?
No, I don't think it was a fight. I think it was just open to do that for this one album. I think it was AM,
the first one.
And so he brought some songs forward, and one of them made the record. But then that was like it after that.
Yeah, I don't think he'd make another record again. Like, I mean, they obviously have the Autumn Defense going, Pat and John do, but I'm sure that they're capable of writing a song good enough for Wilco, but it's not going to go in Wilco, you know what I mean? And I'm sure, Phil Selway and Ed O'Brien have written some of their own albums too, and they'd probably never be allowed into Radiohead, you know what I mean? So it's like, I would not saying that those other guys aren't authentic, but the other guys who were way authentic like that were Pink Floyd. You know, they changed over time, but Pink Floyd had 4 different singers, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And if you're an authentic band, why should it matter? You know what I mean? Like, if there's a good song, there's a good song. You know what I mean? I really disagree with the concept of, I think you're now worried about image if you think a band should just be, band is about the thing around this guy over here. Unless, like, there might be a thing in Radiohead, especially because, like, the singing's so intense in Radiohead. Like, Tom York is never, none of those songs are easy to sing, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe he's like, those Radiohead songs are put at a level that only Tom is capable of, you know what I mean? But I just think that if it was truly authentic, you'd hear other people who are obviously musicians contributing a song here and there, which I think you see in a lot of bands, really truthfully. But
what if a lot of guys don't want to do that? They just want to add to the song, and they're totally stoked about it.
That might be true in those bands because they really are capable of adding to songs and that sort of thing. But I think the simple fact that all those guys have their own solo albums kind of makes that questionable, don't you?
Yeah, I get where you're coming from now. Because they're not allowed to have the release of their songs in that musical situation, but they want to do it, so they do it on their own.
Yeah. Like in the Beatles or in Pink Floyd, nobody released like their own solo album until that band was broken up. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
If you had a song, it went into the band.
That always ends up causing a bit of contention in most bands. When somebody,
most
like
good
when Mick
musicians
Jagger,
have some talent of writing, you know what I mean?
Yeah, when Mick Jagger, the lead of the Stones, went and did like a solo record, you know, like that type of stuff. When that happens, It
He was
seems
just
like,
trying to be a pop star then.
well, whatever the reason, I'm just saying it always leads to band drama. Like when somebody, especially if it's the lead, goes and does a solo by himself.
Yeah,
Like,
but I think that's
It's kind of
also
like taking a piss on your band.
I think that's also a scenario that's kind of relegated to the past too, of the old money times where you were trying to pull one person out of it and say you're the real face of the band, you know, and I think people will be more loyal to their bands nowadays because there's not all these options to go be a further movie star, you know. God, can you imagine how annoying that would be to be in a band like that? Like, what if you were part of Maroon 5 or whatever, and Adam Levine's running around doing all these TV shows and shit, and you're like, well, I'd like to go on tour and get some money, you know. Well, I'm shooting a TV show. Yeah,
That would
you just
suck.
sing, bitch.
That would suck. Because you wouldn't be able to make any dough.
Yeah.
Unless he was going to go with you. Oof. That's kind of stressful.
Where have the Killers been?
I don't know.
They just vanished.
I think they're still putting out albums.
Are they?
I think so.
Yeah.
You just stopped following them, dude. Why'd you do that?
No way, man. Because Imagine Dragons are still up my ass. If they're up my ass, the Killers should be still too.
I'm looking it up. I remember their first two albums.
They had
Listened to
some
them a
good
bunch.
stuff. They had some good stuff.
Albums. Yeah. I don't know. Doesn't look like they put out a... They did one 2013.
I think Neon Trees and Imagine Dragons were both born out of the Killers style for sure. But
right.
of those three bands, give me the Killers any day, you know.
If you enjoyed this episode of The Swinging Lights, please take a moment and just go over to iTunes and just give us 5 stars. You can write whatever you want in the comments, make fun of Chris for being a choir boy. We don't give a shit. If you don't like the podcast, just unsubscribe. But iTunes has its own rating system. It is what it is, and 5 stars will help us more on the business end of things than you could ever even imagine. Once again, thanks for listening.
Peace and rainbows on the indigo flow. Saw I was born of a desert full of snow and heather stone. Born and blessed where my ancestors rest. Each and every one of them were crazy, I guess, for coming out west. Sent me to flee to a
signage.